Live from Jerusalem. Israel is under attack. Iran has directly launched hundreds of ballistic missiles at the Jewish state. What does that mean for the Middle East and for you? Welcome to the Can I Trust the Bible live stream. I am Raj Nair here in San Diego, California. But on your screen, you will see my friend Mati Shoshani of TBN Israel live from the hills of Jerusalem. First and foremost, my friend, how are you? How has the past hour or so been for you?
It's been an interesting evening. It's been quite a bang of an evening, to say it lightly. Never in my life have I experienced such a. I mean, my entire house was shaking. Let's just open with that. We were in the bomb shelters for a good 45 minutes this evening. You know, in Israel, almost every home built after the 90s has a bomb shelter. Uh, Again, just to give people the numbers, tonight Iran attacked Israel with more than 200 rockets, cruise missiles, and otherwise. Most of them were intercepted over our heads. And those intercepts were loud. Those intercepts, they shake the entire house. Me and most of my team were on a conference call. We just finished a live on the TBN Israel channel, and people are welcome to go check it out. Our houses were, I mean, were shaking. You could just see the windows in my house going back and forth. That's how strong the bangs were. But what's incredible is so far, maybe I'll look this up while I'm saying this to get the numbers right. So far, no one has been reported injured or hurt in the entire country of Israel. The only people who were hurt were people who fell down the stairs or slipped on their way to a bomb shelter, and possibly two people lightly wounded with shrapnel in the Tel Aviv area, which is on the coast. So again, incredible on like the number side of things.
I get these apps, these updates whenever Israel is under attack from Hamas or Hezbollah, and they'll usually be like a few dots on the map. I don't know if you can see this. Literally, the
I can.
entire
The whole
country
map,
of
yeah.
Israel is just covered in alerts and sirens. I mean, this is truly unprecedented stuff. We actually scheduled this live stream a couple of days ago, and we were going
Yeah.
to talk about this breaking news that the leader of Hezbollah, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, has been killed. And then like, okay, actually, now we have to update the news because Israel has, invaded parts of southern Lebanon. It's like, no, actually, we have to update to Iran firing missiles directly from Iran to Israel. Then you have reports about Yemen, and then just at the same time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mati, but there was another terrorist attack simultaneously happening in the Jaffa area of Tel Aviv, where I think tragically 6 Israelis have lost their lives.
Yes.
So how do you process all of this mountain of news? What do you think is most important for my friend here to know?
Wow. Tough question. It's been a year of war. And for much of this year, we've been waiting for things to develop. We've been treading lightly. The Israeli government, the IDF, the government have been treading lightly, not wanting to fight on multiple fronts at the same time, not wanting to overstep too much in face of a lot of international pressure to minimize civilian casualties and so on and so forth. And then in the last couple of weeks, it seems like all the guards have been taken off, the training wheels are off, and it's all happening all at once. Just to recap, if I may, I'll recap what's happened in 2 weeks in Israel, Lebanon, Hamas. Uh, Israel blew up close to 5,000 pagers, injuring 2,700 Hezbollah terrorists in one day. The very next day, they're at the funerals and the memorials to those people. A bunch of walkie-talkies blow up. 1,500 Hezbollah targets are targeted and hit by the Israeli Air Force in one 24-hour session. Today, information was released, or now we're allowed to talk about it, that in the last couple of weeks, Israeli special forces have been operating on the ground in southern Lebanon in over 70 different operations just in the last couple of weeks. Then this morning, okay, wait, so Friday, Hassan Nasrallah, the 32-year head of Hezbollah, is killed by Israeli Air Force in a bunker. Along with him, the Southern Command commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, along with him, another Hezbollah operative we've been trying to get for a while, then several others. And the Iranians have been promising an attack, and here it came. And I think it's incredible to say that I don't know why we were afraid. I think that's the thing to lead with, is we've had this concern of what's going to happen if, and we did everything we should have done, and the response has been something I don't want to say we've been able to live with, but it wasn't what it's been drummed up to be. And I think that's something to to remain with as a thought, is we've been living in this concern, this fear of what are the Hezbollah going to do, the great and mighty Hezbollah. What are the Iranians going to do? Well, look, we took out the head of Hezbollah. Look, the Iranians have been threatening, and here I am standing with you talking, and I'm outdoors, just outside of Jerusalem. They've launched 200 rockets at the state of Israel, and so far, no one has been hurt by those rockets, which is incredible.
Wow, wow. So, Mati, you are a follower of Yeshua, and
Yes.
this channel is called "Can I Trust the Bible?" And so, I want to talk about one quick biblical question, which is this: I feel like there's a war of ideas in Western Christianity, and I feel like a lot of people would say, "How can you possibly celebrate the death of any image bearer of God?" And then the other half of, let's call it American Christianity, would say, look, Ismail Haniyeh, who was taken out in Tehran, the leader of Hamas, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, who was taken out in Beirut. These are evil, evil dudes who God enacted justice on them. So from your perspective, as someone who has served in the IDF, as a follower of Yeshua, you're not in your armchair American cornerback thing where you're just way back here, not related. You're in the middle of the storm. How would you think Christians should process what some might be calling, death and destruction? Others might see it as justice and freedom. How would you process that?
You're asking some really strong questions today, Raj. Should have come better prepared. I'll try to answer that. We live in tension. That's how I would answer that. We live in tension between what we're commanded to do by Christ, which is to love every person, to show compassion to every person, and I think especially in this time of war, to have compassion to every type and every person of human suffering, to cherish life and value life of every person. Period. Full stop. There's no debate over that topic. But, and here's the but, this war reminds us that there is good and bad. This war reminds us that there are evil doers and there are good doers. This war reminds us that you have to fight for what was promised to you. And if you don't fight for what was promised to you, you'll be forced to fight for what's promised to you, excuse me, from an even harder position. That was October 7th. So we're reminded of the biblical narrative. We're reminded that we're fighting a war of just cause, and that we're fighting a war that is over something that was promised to us by God. The Bible says to us, and we say this in Hebrew all the time, Binfol oivecha al ta'aloz. It's Proverbs something. I forget what verse exactly. Someone will note that in the comments later on. But it says, don't rejoice at the falling of your enemies. And I agree with that fully. We should never lose humanity, never lose the sense of care and pain over every single person, as evil as they could possibly be. Hassan al-Salah was high up on that list of people that brought a lot of negativity and bad into this world. And his death was justified. His death was needed. His death will make life better for people around the world. And at the same time, he's still a human and a son of God. But the two live in tension. Can I make another comment? Is that okay?
Absolutely, please.
So here's what's different about how we live life in Israel versus, let's say, the US, where it's a Western country where you don't have to ask these questions. Here, it's not a philosophical question. We're living in the land of God's promise. And the reality of that has always been, you fight to live in the promise. And if you forget to fight to live in the promise, you lose the promise. That's what God promises every time. He says, if you do what we're supposed to do, you'll have it. You'll receive the promise. If you don't live the life I'm calling you to live as individuals, as a people, you'll lose that. And I think, and I'm saying this about myself and other Israelis, that before October 7th, we had lost touch to a certain degree with the immediacy, the relevance of God's promise, God's calling for this land, these people, this time, this place. But God's promises, his prophecy, his word is about a people at a time in a place that is called the land of Israel. It's not like this vague, maybe someday, somewhere, something kind of thing. And we were reminded of that. And everyone in this country shifted on October 7th, going back to that, the biblical language of warfare, where and it was so obvious too. There's people an entire nation, even today, the Iranians cheering, yeah, let's get Israel, as if like they're rejoicing at the idea of destruction of another country.
Mhm.
We're playing defense here. Let's be clear.
Right.
We're living in that biblical narrative, and you can't lose touch of that. And to your question, you can't lose touch with the humanity and the love of every individual that God commands us to have.
Hmm. Well, if what just happened a couple hours ago hadn't happened, we were about to talk about some other very massive breaking news, which again
Yeah.
is Israel entering Lebanon. So my question, I guess it's a couple parts. Do you think a third Lebanon war is happening? But I think for a lot of people in the West, they're like, what is Hezbollah? And more importantly, why do they hate Israel so much? What's their deal? I saw this study by the Philos Projects, our friend at the Philos Project, and they said this. It's a short quote. It said, speaking about the Christian population. So Lebanon was founded to be a Christian country, but it says this:
Yeah.
Hezbollah's hybrid sovereignty in Lebanon hit Christians particularly hard. Although no official census has been conducted since 1934, findings by various bodies have documented the Christian community's decline. In the 1950s, more than a decade before the beginning of the Civil War, out of a population of about 1.4 million, 54% were Christians. In 2020, Christians have declined to 33.7%. So obviously, Hezbollah is bad for Christians. Hezbollah is bad for Lebanon. But as someone who can basically see them when they go up to the northern border, who is Hezbollah, and why do they seem so intent on destroying Israel?
Good question. Hezbollah are a terrorist organization, and I'll break down how they operate and what they do. They're a terrorist organization that filled the vacuum of previous terrorists in Lebanon. What they are a stream within. Hold on. They're a stream within Islam, within Shia Islam. There are two main types of Islam: Sunni Islam, Shia Islam. They're aligned with Shia Islam, aligning with the Iranians. And their goal is to promote a type of fundamentalist Islam, which promotes going back to a Muslim governance according to Sharia law. Let's call it biblical Islam or Islamic law. And at the same time, calling for the destruction of the state of Israel, but not just Israel, the Western way of thought, belief, life. And at the top of that list, of course, is the American people and nation. It's not exclusive to Israel. What they're a terrorist organization funded by the Iranians from the get-go, heavily funded, up to $1 billion a year for many, many years. They're funded, they're trained, they're equipped by the Iranians, who use them as part of what they call their Ring of Fire doctrine. And the Ring of Fire doctrine is to surround Israel with proxies of the Iranians on every corner. They're aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood, which for a while, with ISIS and other terrorist organizations in the Sinai Peninsula, that would be in the southwest of Israel, were quite prominent for a while, even taking over Egypt for a while under one of the governments after the Arab Spring. They're part of Hezbollah. That's their biggest proxy army. That's in northern Israel. They've funded countless other terrorist organizations and operations to the east, and most recently, the Houthis out of Yemen. So they've really put a lot of money, the Iranians, into building those people. Hezbollah are the most effective. They're the best equipped. They're the largest in number terrorist organization that the Iranians have ever raised. And their flag is, bringing back Muslim, as according to their interpretation, law and control of this region, and destroying the Zionist entity, which is the state of Israel. That's what they've done. What's interesting about them? Sorry, go ahead.
No,
I've been running for a while. It's a good time for follow-up.
I was watching your live stream with TBN Israel, and you said something speaking about the Iranian ballistic missile attack that just happened. I mean, a couple hours ago, and you read something from an Israeli military official who said something along the lines of Iran has no idea what's coming their way, or something like they haven't even begin to see what Israel is capable of. So here's the real question. We're having people watching this live, I'm sure, that have never seen this channel, but they're wanting to know, what do you think is going to happen? I think it's kind of scary, right? Like, is this the beginning of some sort of cataclysmic war between Iran and Israel? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're privy to some more secretive stuff, so please don't give any of that away. But do you think soon Israel will attack Iran itself? Will that prompt Iran to shoot more stuff? I mean, is this the beginning of a full-scale Middle East war, or do you think this is a ping and a pong and we just need to blow off some steam? Where do you see this going?
I hesitate to answer that question because it could go either which way. My guess is, and this is purely like based on like what's in the air tonight. The Iranians had to respond and they had to retaliate to what Israel's been doing. Israel really, figuratively speaking, took off the gloves in the last couple of weeks. And if you think about the level of blows that have been going between Israel and the Iranians it's not just this war; it's over 10 years at this point. And in certain areas of life, let's say the nuclear program, it's over 15 years of operations. Israel has been striking against the Iranians in mostly clandestine operations for many, many years. Let's say 15 years for this conversation. And we've been doing so on many, many levels, be it sanctions that we were like one of the big champions of the sanctions against Iranians, be it coalition attacks against the proxies of the Iranians, be it even targeted attacks on the ground in Iran. Think about it this way: we talk today about the Iranians launched missiles. Israel has for several years been assassinating Iranian officials, heads of their nuclear program, guys with like PhDs in physics that are building their nuclear bomb, or pieces of the nuclear bomb are suddenly disappearing or vaporizing, in the streets of Iran. That's demoralizing. That's humiliating. We or through a third party, we eliminated Ismail Haniyeh, the political head of Hamas that was on an official visit in Iran, staying in one of their safe houses that was saved for the highest level and highest security guests. He was blown up within one of their apartments. So we've done a lot back and forth. My sense is right now, Hezbollah has taken a substantial blow. The Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, if you look at the American coalition and the effect of that, has really pushed back on, and especially the Israeli air raid a couple of days ago, have pushed back on the Houthis out of Yemen and their ability to attack. And the Iranians, again, so this is a country that fights through proxies. They've been strapped financially by sanctions for many, many years at this point that have cost them so much. They're suffering from internal financial problems, from internal pressures, by a demographic that is getting very tired of the price they've paid for their never-ending wars. So I don't see full-on war in the way we've imagined, let's say, call it a World War II or Korea War or something like that, where two countries sort of, they rev their engines and like head out across the battlefield. But this isn't over. And the sad thing is, in my sense, is wars in this day and age, they don't end in a decisive moment, sadly. I wish they did. But it's sort of just, it might sort of fizzle out for now. And in 6 months, we'll be having the same conversation again with another, small incident that was created. That's at least my sense.
Wow. Netanyahu spoke at the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke at the UN General Assembly only a few days ago. It seems like weeks ago at this point. But he basically made the point. He said, hey, we're not fighting the Lebanese people. We're fighting Hezbollah. We're not fighting the Persian people. We're fighting the Iranian regime. We're not fighting the Palestinian people. We're fighting Hamas. But I think for a lot of people that maybe in the West, it's how can you separate those things? I saw this tweet that kind of went a little bit viral. It said something along the lines of, hey, Israel, you have bombed 3 sovereign nations today. How can you call yourself a defense force? And we have a lot of folks watching. I mean, this is a Christian channel, and it's hard for people to process in the West the idea of targeting military targets that are going to, kill people with the objective of peace. So when Israel, it seems like, attacks Iran, how do you make the distinction, or how should people process the distinction that Israel is not out to obliterate the Persian people, but to take out this evil Iranian regime? Conversely, if the Ayatollahs in Iran had the opportunity to, they would most certainly take out the Jewish people. Who cares about the government? So how would you help followers of Yeshua process that in your mind, because I know you believe this to be true, Israel genuinely wants peace?
There's several levels to that answer. One on the biblical level, we're here because God ordained us to be here, period. These people are going against God's plan. That's one side of it. Another side of it is let's look at the justification. Israel is fighting the most just war possible according to international law and practices and whatnot, which is a war of self-defense. We're defending ourselves against an enemy that is attacking us. Very clear. There's absolutely no question about that. There's no debate. You have to be tone deaf and choose to ignore the facts to not see that. And then another one is, what are the military applications that each country is using? I'll give you a very specific example. Just an hour ago, right here where I'm standing, the Iranians launched 200 missiles at civilian population in Israel. Israel does not do that, even at the greatest time of war. Think Gaza, full of terrorists. I mean, tens of thousands of terrorists, bombs, munitions, RPG rockets, hand grenades in almost every house that IDF soldiers entered throughout the Gaza Strip. And yet, what does the IDF do? We warn people with leaflets out of planes to leave their houses because we're going to go search them and have to destroy the houses that are armed to fight against IDF soldiers. We warn the people of southern Lebanon before we bomb Hamas headquarters. Again, not a home related to the Hamas. The Hezbollah. I'm getting confused here. Hezbollah headquarters in Lebanon. We warn the people of southern Lebanon in advance, saying, we're about to strike. It's time for you to pack up your bags and leave your homes because we're coming for Hezbollah. We target military targets. We target as little we try to eliminate or minimize collateral damage in civilian life as much as humanly possible, even at the point of putting Israeli IDF soldiers' lives at risk to do that. And I've experienced that firsthand for many, many years. There's absolutely no debate about that. It's a very big difference. Hamas fires at civilians in the Israeli side. Iran does. Hezbollah does solely that. There's absolutely no moral comparison. We're not even in the same game at this point. And the fact that people have trouble seeing that, there's a bias in the media, and you and the likes of you are trying to fix that. That is so skewed towards anti-Israel that they're able to equate Israel and Hezbollah or Israel and Hamas on the same level. We're not playing the same game. We're genuinely trying. They're trying to do the opposite. They're trying to hurt civilians. We're doing everything we can not to hurt civilians.
Well, I
hope
want to
that
make
answers.
this.
It's a hard question.
That's beautiful and perfect. I want to make this abundantly clear that as for me and my family, we stand with the Jewish people. We stand with you, Mati. And we want you to know that you're not alone. I not to equivocate things, but I'm a history nerd, and I've done more experiential learning about the Holocaust than you probably ever want to. And it breaks my heart to just see how silent the church was in that time. And so we stand with the Jewish people. This channel stands with the Jewish people. And that does not disparage or mean we're anti anyone. The fact that I have to qualify that is just ridiculous. But I do want to give you one thing, Mati, as we close. Psalm 121, verse 4, that he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep.
Amen to that.
And the fact that hundreds of ballistic missiles have been fired at your country to the tune of almost no casualties is incredible. And so again, our channel is called Can I Trust the Bible? And people say, well, why don't you stick with archaeology? Why don't you stick with the Bible? Because in our opinion, the Bible is happening now. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is active and alive now. He's keeping his promises and his covenants now. The promise of the restoration of Israel is happening now. Open your eyes. This is a greater miracle than the parting of the Red Sea, a greater miracle than the sun standing still in the valley of Ayalon. This is a greater miracle than Elijah calling on fire on the prophets of Baal. What God is doing right now by restoring this persecuted, basically nearly extinct Jewish people into their land. This is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, keeping his promises and exercising his might on the global scene and protecting. You are witnessing the hand of God. And that does not mean that I'm disparaging any other people group, but my fellow sisters and brothers who follow Yeshua, let us keep our eyes open to see that maybe God is up to something here, and that there are evil people in this world who make things muddied and terrible for their own people. But Mati, in closing, again, this is a Christian channel, and there's lots of Christians watching that don't live in Israel. Obviously, I'm sure there are that do. But what would your message be to followers of Yeshua who are watching this right now, who are trying to process what looks like Star Wars on their new? I mean, literally, I was watching the news this morning with my wife, and it looks like Star Wars above your house. How would you, in closing, want to encourage Christians in this moment?
First of all, Raj, you've just encouraged me. You should do this as a profession. I got all amped up listening to you talk about this, genuinely. And just, in the same tone of what you've been saying, there is no separation in this world between what is in the Bible and what we live in today. And Israel is an example to that more than anything. And I know beyond doubt, and it just gets stronger by the day, that God has been faithful from day one all the way till the last day, whenever that happens and comes. He's been faithful from one cover of the Bible to the other cover of the Bible. And everything that he said, even beyond our understanding, beyond our comprehension, beyond our understanding of timelines and history, has happened. What's key is God never said it was going to be easy. If you have a promise, you have to fight for it. If you have a promise, you have to strive for it. You have to suffer for it. In fact, every story worth reading in the Bible, and I enjoy reading the stories of the Bible and teaching them to my kids, there isn't a single story where the hero doesn't have to suffer, where the hero doesn't have to go through a moment of purification, of a cathartic moment to purge their soul and find God and in his full faithfulness in that. And that's where we are as a people of Israel. We're on the route in pursuit of God's promise for this land. We've experienced hardship as God promised. We've experienced supernatural protection as God promised. And we're going to continue to see exactly that. And I invite everyone around the world who's watching this, who question whether or not we're living in that reality, whether or not God is sovereign or present, just open the newspaper, read about what's happening in this country on a daily basis, and your faith will be strengthened. And the last thing is, I think it's okay not to always understand things. The reality in the Middle East, I say this as someone who lives here, and as you, Raj, I love history. I love, archaeology. I love all these things. And oftentimes you're left with a puzzle that stays in your head for a long time, and I'm fine with that. Now, faith is our knowledge being in tension. It's not being relaxed. It's being in tension beyond what we comprehend and what we know in the moment, and that's exactly where we should be. So my ending words are, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get comfortable researching and having to find out more to understand what's really happening. And I want to thank this show for taking the time to really delve into those details. It is important. It takes time to educate an audience and learn and understand. There's so much to it. And yet it's always encouraging at the end. And that's where I stand. After a night of being targeted by the Iranian army, I stand outside of Jerusalem in my home, optimistic, happy, sure in God's faithfulness and his protection for this country and his people. And that's it.
Am Israel Chai, which means the people
Amen,
of
amen.
Israel live. Mati, my friend, Toda Rabba Achi, which means thank you very much, my brother. You are
thank you for having me, Raj.
Such a blessing, my friend.
Same here.
And stay safe, okay?
It.
Stay safe. Love you
I
so
will
much,
try.
brother. Hey, I'm Raj Nair. Thank you for watching the Can I Trust the Bible YouTube channel. We hope this video gave you compelling evidence to trust in the validity of the Bible. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And ask your questions in the comments and share the video with your friends and skeptics. Thanks for watching. See you next time.